So this time, instead of biscuits, I'm gonna make baked beans. I'm gonna make baked beans so that they're actually not just a side dish this time, they're actually gonna be the main dish for supper, and I'll explain that in a little bit. First thing I do, and this may surprise you, baking soda. I've got 3 cans of pork and beans in here in my little casserole dish, and this is a teaspoon and a half of baking soda. Baking soda is my secret weapon because anyone who has boys or a husband knows what happens when you put beans in front of those people.
Hey now.
No, don't you hey now me. What happens is they start laughing, you start screaming, and you finally decide to go to your room and read a book because you can't be around those people. The baking soda actually will cut down on the gas that is produced by the beans once it hits the intestinal tract, okay? If you've ever had a bad case of heartburn, you use antacids. Baking soda is basically an antacid. So, can't see it too much right here, I don't think, but it's bubbling a little bit right there in the center where it's already starting to work on that gas. So I've got the 3 cans and the baking soda. Speaking of baking soda, this is a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. But speaking of baking soda, there was one time when I was pregnant with the boys, my father-in-law taught me a very valuable lesson. They were beating me up from the inside like they used to do all the time. And I had such a bad case of indigestion. All the grocery stores were closed. There were no Tums to be had, and my father-in-law made me drink a teaspoon of baking soda and some water, and that has become my go-to trick ever since. Okay, so that was a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, and I like to, it was packed in there, so I loosened it up so that it's easier to just mix in here. I've got a 1/2 cup of ketchup. If you can hear that, I'm sorry. Chip decided he needed some water, so he's slurping. That was my oven, which by the way is set to 425 degrees. So, 1/2 cup of ketchup. That baking soda's starting to work even more now. You can see it bubbling up because there's acid, there's vinegar in ketchup, in case you didn't know that. It's going to bubble up even more here in a second because I'm adding about 1/3 of a cup of Worcestershire sauce. Don't start the debate on how you say that word, okay? I say it the way it's spelled.
We shook his ear.
No, you don't get to talk. You just hold the camera. And then I've got a 1.5 tablespoons of yellow mustard. Oh my goodness, something just set the dogs off. 1.5 tablespoons of yellow mustard. And mix all that in. I'm gonna try to get it all stirred in really well right now because I still gotta add my meat. And that, what I'm adding here, this reaction you see here is basically vinegar and baking soda. If you ever did that in any of your science classes or as a kid, but the baking soda still has an effect. I add baking soda when I make beans, when I make baked beans, like pinto beans, bean soup, any of that stuff. I add some baking soda. Trust me, it's beneficial, especially if you don't live with those people and yell at them for sitting on your couch when they're doing things that you don't want to deal with. So I'll let that sit for a second. What I have here, Chris and I smoked, actually mostly me, I smoked pork butt a few days ago. And if you look, you can actually see the smoke ring on some of this. It's nice and smoky. So I'm just chunking it up into little chunks, and I'm gonna throw it in here. And this does a couple of things. Number one, it's gonna add even more flavor, that smoky flavor to the baked beans. The other thing is, it turns a side dish into a main dish because now you've got all this meat in here, making it even more of a meal. Let the dogs out, Chris. And then I have added, in the past I've added hamburger meat, to this as well. You could add chicken, but the best last final ingredient I'm gonna add here is this. Can you see that? Okay, that's about 6 slices of bacon and a small Vidalia onion cut up, sauteed together. And I'm adding it grease and all. Yes, have your heart attack right now if you want to, but no pun intended. But I promise you that bacon grease is gonna make it taste even better. You ever crave a smell? My friends who've been pregnant, you probably know what I'm talking about. You just really want to smell this certain smell. I think honestly, if they made a bacon and onion candle, I would buy it in a heartbeat. Because when I was pregnant, I don't even remember which one of the kids I was pregnant with, but I wanted that smell of bacon and onions cooked together. I didn't force Chris to eat a bunch of baked beans like I did with the boys when I was pregnant and all I ever wanted was squash, corn, and okra. He got really sick of eating squash, corn, or okra. But I had Vidalia onions. You can use any onion if you want. Vidalias are just my favorite. If you don't know what a Vidalia onion is, it comes from Vidalia, Georgia. And Vidalia is the only place in the world that grows Vidalia onions. You can grow sweet onions just about anywhere. Texas and Spain have their own versions. But Vidalia, Georgia has a different sulfur content in their soil, which is why their onions taste the way that they do and why they have the name Vidalia onion. So I'm gonna bake this at 425 for about 40 minutes. What you're looking for is this dark brown glazy kind of look. You're gonna want the juices to thicken up, and you don't want it runny. You want it kind of nice and thick and with a lot of meatiness to it, for lack of a better word. And if you don't have brown sugar, I have used white sugar and molasses before. I've even gotten desperate and used syrup, like pancake syrup. It works okay, but brown sugar for me is the best, and it doesn't really matter to me whether it's light brown sugar or dark brown sugar. It's still really good either way. So, into the oven, 40 minutes, and we're gonna have supper.